Excited to say, joining us right now is Bishop E.W. Jackson. He's got some very cool things planned for Martin Luther King Day, and he's been out there since he ran for lieutenant governor in 2013, getting the word out, fighting the good fight all over the country. And some of the conference calls that he has that I've been on are really cool. We want to welcome Bishop E.W. Jackson on our show once again today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks again for having me. And listen, congratulations on your success. I'm sure there's much, much more to come.
Well, we appreciate that, and we're always excited, sir, to have you on. And you've got a couple of big events coming up. I want to be sure we don't get off on a tangent and run out of time. Can you share with our audience what and where they are?
Sure. In light of the protests that are going on, and on Martin Luther King Day, this coming Monday, there are going to be protests all over the country. They're calling them 4-mile marches to basically protest against the police, where we're holding our event and we're taking special time to give a tribute to the police and law enforcement who protect us every day, who ran into the trade towers when they were falling rather than running away in order to try to rescue other people. We want to make sure that we bring them together with our youth. So on Monday at 10 a.m. at the Chesapeake Marriott, we're holding a major Martin Luther King celebration, a 15th year, and we'll be honoring police and youth and bringing them together. And we've also, by the way, John, sent out a communication across the country urging Martin Luther King celebrations include the police. Dr. King believed that people who serve should be willing to give their lives, and the police do that on an ongoing basis.
Now, I want to talk about the Bishop Jackson a little bit, because there's been a lot of protest in opposition to police, some of police actions. But to be very candid with you, Bishop Jackson, now we find out that the organizations behind these protests, this isn't something that just bubbled up from the grassroots. We find out that they were all funded by liberal financier George Soros. What's the deal?
Well, look, for those who don't know, George Soros is an evil man who has made his money through currency manipulation. He has given $7 billion to every left-wing radical cause imaginable, because I think he really hates the United States of America, and he wants to bring us down. And yes, he has been financing these protests across the country, and that ought to give any person who's thinking about participating in this pause to realize they're being manipulated by forces far greater than what they think is happening. This is not a grassroots effort. This is a manipulated effort by a man who is, frankly, hell-bent on destroying America.
Why?
Well, you mean why does he want to destroy America?
Yes.
Because, look, I think for the same reason that a lot of leftists don't like our country. Our country is rooted and grounded and founded on Judeo-Christian principles of freedom, of recognizing the rights of the individual to live their lives as they see fit. And these people, in fact, I was just reading an article about him not too long ago, which he talked about his messianic pretensions, that he has delusions of grandeur, that he's the savior of the world, that he's a god. This mindset that we know best for everyone, and since they won't do it on their own, we've got to figure out a way to force them to do it. America is the antithesis of that, and that's one of the reasons why they hate our freedom, they hate our opportunity, they hate the fact that our country has persisted for over 200 years and brought more and more and more people together across all racial and cultural lines. These are all things that they just abhor.
EW, let's go to the Charlie Hebdo situation, the Freedom March in France. Benjamin Netanyahu made it there, the Prime Minister of Israel, even though he was not invited. He just decided, this is something I have to do. He was under heavy security, obviously. The head of the PLO went. Eric Holder was 6 blocks away and didn't bother to show up. What are we doing?
You know, John, there are people who believe that America is the problem, but in fact America is the solution. I just wish that the President of the United States would lead. I think people are hungry for that leadership. They want it. But I think part of the problem is that he himself is so ambiguous and so vacillating in his understanding of who we are as a country that it's impossible for him to give the bold, straightforward leadership that needs to be given. I've said many times, the only things the president has really led on are things that most Americans don't agree with. He's led on Obamacare. The majority don't like it. He's led on climate change. The majority don't agree with it. He's led on the whole gay rights movement, and the majority of Americans, at least a small majority of Americans, still don't agree with that. And even those who do agree feel that the persecution of places like Hobby Lobby, the small businesses around the country, is wrong. So we got a president who really has his own vision, and it's just not in keeping with the vision of most Americans. And I don't think that was mere incompetence. I think it was a choice not to let America be the leaders that the world needs us to be, and instead, as they coined the phrase not too long ago, leading from behind, which is no such thing.
EW, why won't the Obama administration call this what it is? Radical, Islamic, Muslim, terrorist. Why do we have to create all these things like lone wolves and, acts of violence not tied to a religion? This is all nonsense.
Well, it is, and of course, there are lots of explanations that people give, but I think most are missing the profound one. And the profound one is that this president identifies with Islam. Now, I didn't say he's Islamic. I didn't say he's a Muslim. And I've often been accused by the left of saying that. I never said that. But I do believe that he has a hypersensitivity to Islam and to protecting it, to defending it, to identifying with it. Because, after all, he was raised for a number of years in Indonesia. His father was a Muslim. They say he was an atheist, but he was a Muslim by birth. So I think this president has a visceral sort of knee-jerk tendency to defend Islam no matter what. And it leads to this discordant policy that is completely out of step with reality that says, well, we're not going to call it Islamic extremism. Well, even Muslims call it Islamic extremism. So it's preposterous to avoid reality that way. And, I don't ever want to be seen to disrespect the presidency of the United States because I have immense respect for the office. But I just believe that this president, frankly, is in a world of his own, and now with only 2 years left, I think he's just going to do his own thing. I mean, he just released 5 terrorists from Guantanamo Bay only a week and a half after this murderous attack in France. It doesn't make any sense at all, but he continues to do it.
What should our strategy be? How do we defeat this enemy, EW?
I think we've got to have at least a twofold strategy. One, obviously, has got to be military, and in my view, the key to the military strategy, John, is it's got to be war. It's got to be we don't tie the hands of our military people. We let them determine a military strategy and then carry it out. And it's going to have to be diverse because these are not folks that you simply meet on the battlefield. These are people who are dispersed across the globe, and we've got to be prepared to adjust to that reality. But the second thing is to me, a cultural and communications issue. I think we've got to stand up and denounce this. I think we've got to demand that moderate Muslims do that. And we've got to be willing to say, look, this is monstrous, it is evil, it is wrong. If you moderate Muslims say this is not Islam, then prove it by standing up against it. We will stand with you, but we've got to denounce this. We've got to teach young children that this is not the way to go. This is pure evil. And I think until we're willing to do that with a clarion voice, I think we're going to see Guantanamo Bay, we're told, is one of the reasons why they're able to recruit young people to jihad. No, it's not. They recruit them with propaganda, and they're not getting any counter message, and we've got to be willing to get that counter message out there in all of these mosques and all these communities. So we've got to take a twofold strategy, and right now we're not even doing the military strategy, let alone the communications and cultural strategy.
Bishop, Duke University was going to have this Muslim prayer fest, if you will. Then Billy Graham's son posts on social media and says, hey, why don't we just turn off Dr. Green? And then they react. What's going on in our college campuses today?
Well, look, it's reflective of something's happening that's happening in our culture. Unfortunately, the intellectual elite tend to lead the way in this, and it is more and more cultural and intellectual relativism, that all things are equal, that all things are the same, and we got to make sure that we propagandize and promote that idea. But America, while pluralistic and while free for all people, America is a Judeo-Christian nation. What we now have is hostility against Christianity, but this sort of openness to Islam, and any criticism of Islam is called Islamophobia. But notice, they don't call criticism of Christianity Christophobia or Catholicophobia or Bibliophobia. That's okay. So I think it's part of a cultural degeneration. And you're right, the only reason why Duke backed up is they heard from alumni that they were going to withdraw their contributions if Duke persisted in this. So the money did talk. But we got a deep cultural problem. We got to come back, John, to the idea that there is such a thing as truth, that America's history is worth celebrating and acknowledging, and it's not unconstitutional to acknowledge that we are rooted and grounded and founded in Judeo-Christian principles, and that's why everyone, including Muslims, are free to worship in our country.
EW, I want you to remind again our listeners, we've got about a minute and a half of some of the events that you're staging on Monday for Martin Luther King Day, and if they want more information, where do they go?
It's the Martin Luther King Leadership Breakfast. It's the 15th anniversary. The first person to speak at this breakfast, by the way, was the niece of Dr. King, Alveda King. I'm the keynote speaker this time. Every 5 years I do that, but they can go to 757-410-7740 to order tickets. They've got to reserve their breakfast now if they're coming, because as you know, this is Friday, that's Monday. We've got to give a final count today, or they can go to our website, standamerica.us, if they want to contribute or buy tickets.
Standamerica.us. What time is it? Where is it?
Oh, it's at 10 a.m. at the Chesapeake Marriott, I think it's 740 Woodlake Drive, 725 Woodlake Drive in Chesapeake. It's right off the highway. You can't miss it. It's the Chesapeake Marriott.